Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for our last podcast from Davos. We're at the Amaron Hotel, and I'm Joe Abi Akl, the Chief Corporate Development Officer at Majid Al Futtaim. For this session, I'm joined by Ahmed, Ismail, the CEO of Properties, Shireen Khatib, the CEO of our shopping malls business, and Hawazen Esber, the CEO of our communities business. Obviously, we have today with us the Properties delegation, so I'm gonna try to focus the discussion obviously on the key takeaways and learnings from this week, but also on the disruptions facing the Properties business and the future that we foresee for that business, and what the Majid Al Futtaim business and people have to do to actually be able to win in this space. Shireen, obviously, I'm going to start with you being our female delegate this year. This is your second time coming to Davos. Yes. How is this time different from the last time? And what are your key learnings and takeaways, and what did you enjoy the most?
Okay, so basically the first time I came to Davos, I had been on the new job at shopping malls for 2 months. So I was already overwhelmed with the new responsibilities and wanting to learn and understand more about the business, etc. And then I hit Davos. And I was even further overwhelmed. It seems I had not picked my sessions properly. So I was in certain sessions where things did not resonate with me well, and I didn't sort of thoroughly enjoy the sessions. The difference is that this time, I picked the sessions carefully, and I literally enjoyed every session I attended. The topics varied from climate change to gender parity to metaverse, the great resignation. So most of the sessions were very, very enjoyable. And that's it.
Actually, I agree with you. I had a similar experience, and it even gets better time over time. The first time I came, it was extremely overwhelming. There's so much to do, so many people to meet, and you end up not doing enough because you're confused and lost and a bit like a headless chicken running around. This year, I've focused my agenda a bit more, and I found it much more seamless and much more, let's say, engaging and fruitful. And maybe one thing I needed to mention before in my introduction, Shireen, a lot of our listeners in the previous podcast actually asked, where are the female delegates from MAF, and why haven't they been invited to these podcasts?
So here I am.
Exactly, we're so happy to have you, and it's a great pleasure. Ahmed, moving to you, right? Obviously, also, this is not your first time. And we've discussed with you in the last podcast, a bit more on the business side and your expectations. So I want to listen more to your views from a personal perspective. Yes. What inspired you, be it either people you met or things you've seen, and what do you feel you're actually taking back with you to Dubai? Yeah.
So I think at a personal level, a couple of experiences that I think I'd like to share. One, I had the chance to sit in the conversation between Professor Schwab and Satya Nadella. And Satya Nadella is one of my most favorite leaders in the world. I feel that I have somewhat of a connection to him, being a tech geek myself. He also has 2 children with special needs, and he talks about it very openly. And he has been able to use that as a positive catalyst for his own leadership development. What was quite inspiring is listening to someone like Satya, who's turned around a big ship like Microsoft, created one of the most valuable companies in the world, and probably created $500 billion of shareholder value. Talk about the fact that he's still learning, and talking about how the COVID experience has helped him improve his leadership style first. And it sort of reminded me of his book, Hit Refresh, where he talks about that the fundamental element of transforming Microsoft was to change the mindset within the organization of people who knew it all to people who would learn it all. And I thought that was very powerful, that even at this level and after so much success, you have to be Mr. Learn It All rather than Mr. Know It All. And I think that's something that all of us can potentially, learn from. The second inspiration came from meeting the founder of a startup that has just won the contract to fully decarbonize the city of Ithaca in the US. So the city of Ithaca is the 100th largest city in the US, 6,000 buildings, and he has raised enough money from multiple sources, including Jeff Bezos, to fully decarbonize the city. And that startup, I think, could be a game changer. And what I found very interesting is talking to the gentleman, an African-American founder, is he's also very interested to engage with us to see how can we take his model to Africa, where we know that access to financing and access to capabilities to really decarbonize and retrofit buildings doesn't exist. So this was also quite a impactful encounter for me, and something that I would definitely follow up on when I get back to Dubai.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you for the personal reflection and obviously for the business ones. Hawazen, moving now to you. This is your first time in Davos. And you planned this very last minute. So how did it feel? Did it actually beat your expectations, or did it fall short? What are the sessions that you attended that you found very interesting? And what do you feel you're going to change or adopt from what you learned here in your own business?
So it was last minute, but I had plenty of advice from my veteran colleagues. And I have been part of the Council for Cities of the Future. So we have been doing a lot of work on the city revenue and city finance. So that also helped a lot filter what I wanted to attend. I was focusing obviously on the SDG, and there was some really great work done by a lot of people. And just being exposed to that was overwhelming a little bit, but it also was a good recharge to see where are the current trends and obviously the future trends.
Thank you. And maybe a quick follow-up question. I'm sure a lot of our listeners, or actually viewers in this case, will be asking about the pen you're wearing.
So this is the SDG pen. The SDG these are 17 global goals as set by the United Nations, ranging obviously from social goals ending poverty to more on the preservation of the environment. And obviously the most important relevant goal to us is the future of cities, how to make them more resilient and more sustainable.
Building on the SDG topic that Hawazen mentioned, Shireen, you had actually a session related to that earlier this week. So maybe you can share with our audience a bit about the views that you shared in that session and how Majid Al Futtaim is actually trying to play a role in that space.
Indeed, it was a very interesting session, and it was covering the topic of climate action starts from home. And in the session, I did my part mentioning all the initiatives that we embarked on in Majid Al Futtaim and how we campaign every initiative, both internally and externally, raising the awareness and creating a sense of responsibility with people, whether they are our employees or the customers. I also spoke about what Majid Al Futtaim has been achieving in terms of progress year after year over the past 6 years when we set our ambitious sustainability target. And I mentioned the achievement on water usage reduction, which went from 5.8 million cubic meters in 2018 to 4.7 in 2020, despite the fact that our footprint increased by 40% during that period.
I think you said on the panel 4.77.
Yeah, but then Alain Bejani made fun of me after the session.
Round up, round down.
And he said 4.77, does it have to be 77? So that's why I said 4.7.
So technically it should have been 4.8.
Yeah,
Depends. Let's not round up. On this one specifically, let's not round up. Let's round down.
4.75. 4.75. Yeah.
Actually, there were two other things, Shireen, that I found quite interesting in your session. One is the fact that this sustainability work doesn't only, let's say, depend on businesses, it starts at home. And you also mentioned some of the initiatives you actually started in your own family, actually, be it the single use of plastic, right, and water consumption, let's say, limitation. And you also doubled down on the importance of raising awareness and communication. It's not only about doing the action, but also communicating and raising awareness to the wider community. Yes. So this is all we have for this session. I want to thank all my panelists from this podcast and the one before, and everyone who's behind the scene trying to make this happen. This has been a very exciting journey. There are a lot of learnings and takeaways that we're gonna apply back in our business and in our region. And hopefully you found this also useful, and we've managed to actually give you a feel of what Davos is all about. Thank you, and hope we can actually catch up soon.